Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are looking at something that honestly feels a little bit like we found a message in a bottle.
Except the bottle washed up from the future.
Or maybe it was always here. I don't know. This one is, well, it's a lot.
It is certainly one of the most unique stacks of source material we've ever had on the desk.
We're looking at a set of transcripts, and the date on them is specifically February 19, 2026.
Which is an interesting detail.
Yeah, depending on when you, the listener, are tuning in, that might be history or might be a date you need to mark on your calendar. But the content isn't a diary entry. It's a blueprint.
Exactly. It's a first-person account, but it's mixed with this highly technical breakdown of how to build a time machine.
And before anyone rolls their eyes thinking this is some generic sci-fi fan fiction.
You have to stop right there. The level of detail here and the specific theoretical framework is it's unlike anything I've ever seen.
It's not your typical flux capacitor stuff, where you just add plutonium and go fast.
Not at all.
The voice in these documents, and it is a very distinct voice, claims to offer a completely radical perspective on how reality is structured.
That's the key. This isn't just about nuts and bolts. The creator claims to have been born in time rather than space.
Right.
They view consciousness as a primary data structure. So our mission today is to try and decode this chaotic mix of quantum physics, geometry, and personal narrative to understand the specific theory of how to traverse what they call the Trident axis of time.
Okay, let's unpack this born in time thing first, because that is a heck of an opening statement.
It really is.
The source literally says, I was born in time. I was not born in space.
It sounds poetic, almost metaphorical, but reading through this, they seem to mean it quite literally.
They do. And this is the foundational concept you have to grasp to understand the machine.
Okay.
Usually we think of space as the stage, the solid thing, and time is just the clock ticking on the wall. It's secondary.
Sure.
This source argues that time exists before space.
So time is the container. Correct. They describe space as just a time slice.
A time slice. Okay, help me visualize that.
Imagine time is the entire ocean. Deep, moving, fluid, vast.
Yeah.
Space, the physical world we see, the chair you're sitting in, the car you're driving, is just a single frozen wave within that ocean that we happen to be standing on right now.
That is trippy. So if space is just a slice, theoretically there are infinite other slices you could step onto.
If you knew how to swim in the ocean. Precisely.
And the source claims they had this awareness before they were even born.
Like literally in the womb. They talk about a period of 1 to 3 months developing where they possessed prenatal consciousness.
This part blew my mind. They're floating there, physically developing, but because they weren't fully anchored in space yet.
They hadn't been born into the physical world.
Right, they claim they could access history.
It's fascinating. They describe seeing the data structure of time. They mention being able to see people's minds, talk to people in different eras.
They even name drop Einstein, although they clarify that Einstein wasn't on their specific time graph.
It's like they were surfing the internet of history before they even logged into a physical body. They call it a preconscious birth.
That's a great analogy.
And because of this perspective, they define the geometry of time very differently than we do. The source introduces this concept of the Trident axis.
The Trident axis, so this is the map.
Yes. We are used to 3 dimensions in space: latitude, longitude, and altitude.
Right.
The source argues that time has those exact same 3 poles. It's not just a line moving forward from past to future. It has width, height, and depth.
And if time has dimensions, you can navigate them. But here is where the source gets really philosophical before getting technical.
The comparison to God.
Yeah, they make a comparison between the user, the observer, and God.
It is a bold comparison. They aren't saying they are a deity, but they compare the observer's position to a Christian God or the concept of a God in terms of stability.
House.
They liken it to the Higgs boson.
The God particle.
Right. In physics, the Higgs field is what gives particles mass. It anchors them. This source is saying that the observer, the user, acts like the Higgs boson for their own timeline.
So we have a stable position on the quantum field because we're observing it.
Exactly. So in this theory, we are the anchors. We are the God of our own timeline because we stabilize the chaos just by looking at it.
Without the observer, it's just a sea of probability. We make it real.
That's the idea.
Okay, so that's the philosophy. We are consciousness anchors floating in a time ocean. but we're stuck on this one wave.
And this person wants to build a machine to get off the wave.
So they get into the physics, and I have to be honest, I wrote particle physics salad in my notes because it gets dense.
It is incredibly dense, and it mixes standard physics with, let's call it alternative physics.
But there is a method to the madness. They talk about fusion and fission, but not in the way a nuclear power plant uses them.
No, and this is where we have to pay close attention to the mechanism. The source outlines 2 ways to manipulate time using these forces. The first is fusion. They describe this as smashing 2 qubits or electrons together at light speed.
Which sounds like standard particle accelerator stuff. We do that at CERN all the time.
We do. But the source claims that this fusion creates a new force that propagates outwards. And crucially, they say this force is out of time.
Out of time. So fusion is like the eject button.
In a way, it pushes you outside the flow. But then you have the second method.
Which is fission, breaking things apart.
Exactly. The source suggests taking atoms or molecules and imploding them, separating them. They claim that when you do this, you produce basically no energy in a conventional sense.
Which for a normal engineer is a failure. You want energy.
If you want to power a light bulb, yes. But if you want a time machine, the source argues this is perfect.
Why?
Because they claim this implosion causes time to fold.
So fusion pushes you out of the stream.
And fission folds the stream so you can step across to a new spot.
That seems to be the operational theory.
And to prove they've thought this through, they start throwing in some very specific measurements. They mention muons having a value of 0.09.
And leptons at 9.8 minutes.
And they equate the strong forces to electrons. Now, for anyone listening who knows standard physics, you're probably screaming at your speakers right now.
It's a complete recategorization of the standard model.
It feels like they're remixing the dictionary of physics to fit a language only they speak.
But there was one claim that made me actually put my coffee down. Gravity.
The magnetic claim.
Yeah. They explicitly state that gravity's magnetic and that protons attract like magnets. Now, hold on. Basic high school physics. Protons are positive. Positive repels positive. They shouldn't attract.
You're absolutely right. In the standard model, electromagnetism and gravity are different forces, and like charges repel.
But this source insists that protons have a magnetic wave of gravity and that this attraction is what holds the structure of reality together.
It is a massive rewrite of how the universe works.
It is.
But think about it from their perspective. If space is just a time slice, maybe the rules of physics inside the slice are just local rules. They seem to be describing the physics of the ocean, not the wave. They even redefine the Higgs boson itself, calling it an electron neutrino that represents mass.
Which again is wild because neutrinos are famous for having almost no mass. They're ghost particles.
Exactly. But here, the source is trying to explain how mass is created or assigned when time becomes space. It's as if they're looking at the code behind the physics.
They aren't interested in the furniture, they're interested in the floorboards.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, speaking of floorboards, that is the perfect segue to the math. Because if the physics was a salad, the navigation system is, well, it's a needle in a haystack. Literally.
They bring up Buffon's needle.
They do. And this is critical. If you want to understand how they navigate, you have to understand this experiment.
Buffon's needle is a classic probability problem from the 18th century.
Okay, walk us through it. Why is a time traveler referencing an 18th century math problem?
So imagine you have a floor made of parallel strips of wood-like hardwood flooring. All the strips are the same width.
Okay.
You take a needle, which is the same length as the width of the strips, and you drop it on the floor.
Totally random drop.
Totally random. The question is, what is the probability that the needle will cross a line between 2 strips?
And the answer involves pi, right?
It does. The probability is exactly 2 divided by pi. It's about 64%. It's this weird magical connection between a random physical action and the mathematical constant of circles.
Okay, so it's a cool party trick to calculate pi.
Yeah.
But how does this help me drive a time machine?
The source uses it as a model for slicing off space into segments.
Okay.
They aren't just dropping needles, they are dropping the observer into the fabric of space-time. They use a specific example of a space that is 15 centimeters high by 10 centimeters wide.
150 square centimeters.
Right, and then they start dividing it. Relentlessly. They talk about dividing it by halves, half a dimension, half a rotation. The idea is that space-time is lined, just like that floor.
So they're using probability to figure out where the cracks in reality are.
Exactly. If you know the probability of crossing a line, you can navigate the lines.
And to actually steer through this, they use a gimbal system. Which makes sense. I mean, Rockets use gimbals. Planes use gimbals to stay level.
Yes, but this isn't a gimbal for air resistance. It's a gimbal for space-time. They describe a dual system of pitch, yaw, and roll.
And they specifically reference theta, which is your angle of rotation.
And rho, which often represents density or displacement in polar coordinates. They call it a global potential system.
Global potential system. That is so much cooler than global positioning system.
It is a great distinction.
It's not where am I, it's where could I be.
It is. And the gimbal has to lock onto an axis. Just like a gyro stabilizes a camera so the picture isn't shaky, this gimbal stabilizes the time machine against the movement of the universe.
So it locks onto latitude, longitude, and altitude, but the temporal versions of these.
Right. And the math they spout to achieve this lock is intense.
I saw formulas like tan B divided by A. We've got specific degrees flying around 273 degrees, 97 degrees, 122 degrees.
It's incredibly specific. They talk about calculating arc time, which they define as 1 divided by time, and they derive these very precise numbers.
6.737 is one result.
And then there's this R-squared value of 169.629.
Why so precise? Why not just say turn left at the next century?
Because it's an address. Think about a URL on the internet. If you get one character wrong, you get a 404 error.
Right.
In time travel, if you get the angle wrong by a fraction of a degree, you don't land in 2026. You might land in the void. It's a derivation of a specific coordinate in a fluid medium.
This brings us perfectly to the second document in our source pile, which is titled The Locking Problem.
Right.
Because apparently figuring out the math is only half the battle. You have to actually stay put once you get there.
This is the crux of the engineering challenge. The locking problem addresses the difficulty of holding a position in space-time. The source points out that space is constantly changing around the observer. Nothing is static.
The Earth is spinning, orbiting the sun.
The sun is orbiting the galaxy. Yeah. They use that analogy of the hand to explain this, which I found surprisingly helpful.
Me too.
It's like following someone's hand movements. If I point at you, but I'm moving, and you're moving, I have to constantly update my angle to keep pointing at you.
Right. The time machine has to do the same thing. It has to update its position constantly to maintain coherence with target time.
If you don't lock, you drift.
And drifting in time sounds, well, horrifying.
It would be. You'd lose coherence.
To achieve this lock, they are obsessed with this concept of halves. Half guides, half rotations, half reflections. We touched on this with a needle experiment, but why is half such a magic number here?
It ties back to the geometry and the Buffon probability. The source says if you have half a rotation, you can double the scale. It suggests that the universe operates on a ratio of halves.
Half true, half fake.
Right. It's binary, but geometric. By manipulating these halves, doing a half translation or a half reflection, you can slip between the cracks of space. It's about finding the midpoint where the rules are flexible.
It's like finding a loophole in the rendering of the universe.
It is.
Like in a video game where you clip through the wall because you stood in exactly the halfway point between two textures.
In a way, yes. And they emphasize the need for no noise. The system must filter out the noise to find the signal of time. They call time a mosaic.
It's made of little pieces, and it's changing.
Exactly. You need a pure signal to lock onto.
So let's look at the machine we've built here. It's powered by fission, or fusion, to push or fold the stream. Is navigated by a pitch-yaw gimbal.
And it's calculating probabilities with pi to lock onto a moving mosaic of time using half dimensions.
It sounds insane when you say it all at once.
It does, but it also sounds weirdly consistent.
Yeah, the internal logic is there.
That's what makes it so compelling. It's not random, it's a system.
But what does it all mean? I mean, why build this? Let's look at the philosophical implications here. Because the source draws a really hard line between teleportation and time travel.
This is a crucial distinction. The source says teleportation might destroy information or destroy something.
We've heard that in sci-fi, the idea that a transporter kills you and clones you at the destination.
Which is a terrifying thought.
I'm never getting in one of those.
Fair enough. But this source argues that the rules of time travel are different. They allow you to put things back together.
Split apart and build them together?
Right. It's about the preservation of information. The machine isn't just a vehicle, it's a geometric calculation of your existence in the flow. It validates that you exist.
And then they get really deep. They talk about the void.
This was the most striking part for me. The source says, we hold things to be void, and that is why religion exists.
We hold things to be void. That's heavy.
They suggest that we cling to objects, to machines, to beliefs, not just to contain them, but to address the nothingness, the void that surrounds us.
It's almost touching, isn't it? They're building this incredibly complex machine, doing all this trigonometry, just to have something to hold on to.
To have a lock on reality. It suggests that the ultimate purpose of the time machine isn't tourism. It isn't to go back and kill Hitler or see the dinosaurs. It's stability.
It's about proving that the observer, the God in the machine, has a place in the chaos.
Exactly. The final configuration they mention requires a lattice signal, rotation, reflection, enlargement.
It sounds like they are trying to build a mirror that reflects their own existence back at them, so they don't get lost in the time stream.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's navigation as a form of self-preservation.
So let's recap this wild journey. We started with a creator who claims to have seen the architecture of time from the womb.
Prenatal vision.
We moved through a physics model where protons are magnetic and imploding atoms folds the time stream.
We navigated using a gimbal that calculates the arc time, using the probability of a dropped needle on a hardwood floor.
And we faced the locking problem, learning that to travel in time is to constantly recalculate your relationship to a moving universe, using Hasse dimensions to slip through the noise.
It's a lot.
The key takeaway seems to be a total inversion of our reality. The source wants us to understand that time is the primary structure.
And space is just the secondary feature, the time slice that we happen to occupy right now.
To travel, you don't move through space. You lock onto the time axis using precise angular momentum.
Exactly. It shifts the agency from the environment to the observer. You aren't just drifting in the river, you are the rock that splits the stream.
I want to leave you with the thought that the source hinted at, which I can't stop thinking about. They said we hold on to things to address the void.
Mm.
And they claim we are born in time. If that's true, if our consciousness is the primary data structure and the physical body is just a time slice, are we all technically time machines?
That is a heavy question to end on.
Think about it. We move forward, we process data, we lock onto moments. Are we just time machines that haven't learned how to use our gimbals yet?
It's a beautiful, if slightly terrifying, possibility. Maybe the machine isn't something you build, maybe it's something you are.
Something to mull over while you're stuck in traffic in your current time slice.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you in the next one.